Am I crazy, or does it feel like events are literally accelerating at light speed, and also that it doesn't seem to matter? Like stuff, like major events happen and then they're like instantly forgotten. It's like we're entering some phase where like people are like nothing happens, but things are happening, but it just doesn't seem like it makes any impact. Like, what's happening? Like, somebody took a shot at Trump. Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Like, what is even going on here? So we're going to be talking about that. Obviously, we had Joe Biden's dropout speech. I didn't watch it, chat, so I'm going to give you a fresh, legitimate reaction to the Joe Biden dropout speech. I'm excited about that. The Netanyahu speech, like, I legitimately have to say that the Netanyahu speech absolutely was just... At a certain point, I stopped talking because the only thing that was going to come out of my mouth was going to be TOS. Legitimately, at a certain point, I just stopped talking because I couldn't say anything but TOS shit. So I just was like, I was absolutely fuming. Legitimately, it's so easy for Kamala Harris to win this election. It's legitimately easy for Kamala Harris to win this election. Pick somebody who isn't a right-wing piece of shit for vice president. Go to Joe Biden, sit him down and be like, listen, I know you love Israel. It's time for a ceasefire now. It's time for a ceasefire now. I don't want to start leaks that we need to do the 25th Amendment and remove you from office. Get this fucking ceasefire. It's time. What's AIPAC going to do to you at this point? Your favorite son is dead. Your other son's a fucking crackhead. He's not going to make it to fucking 60 anyway. Who gives a shit? It needs to go further than a permanent ceasefire. The Israeli troops need to pull out completely of Gaza, the West Bank. Otherwise, they will kill by going door to door and shooting Palestinians and killing them, saying they're Hamas. Melanie, a ceasefire involved, like, they're not going to leave Israeli troops in the Gaza Strip, like, and have them be. They don't have the capability. It's a tiny, pathetic country. It can't exist without getting money poured into it from the United States. Like, it can't do this. It can't even do this genocide without our support. All right, chat, let's watch this fucking Biden farewell speech. You know, chat, before we watch this, I want you to know something. You did this. You did this. Every single one of you people who was on Twitter shit posting with me, telling him to drop out, yelling on TikTok, yelling, calling up your representatives. I called my representative, chat, and I left a message and I said, tell Biden to drop the fuck out. You did this. Every single person who answered a poll saying they wanted him to drop out, every single person who said they strongly disapproved, every single person, you did this. So savor it. Enjoy it. It tastes good.
My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington, who showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln, who implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt, who inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think is more important than any title. I draw strength and I find joy in working for the American people. But this sacred task of perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we, the people. And we can never forget that. And I never have. I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history when the decisions we
Jesus fucking Christ. Like, he can't even get it out. He can't even get it out. He can't get his farewell speech out.
Make now will determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come. America's going to have to choose between moving forward or backward. between hope and hate, between unity and division. We have to decide, do we still believe in honesty, decency, respect, freedom, justice, and democracy? In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do?
Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. This speech is so bad.
That? Does character in public life still matter?
So true, Mr. Turley. So
I don't
true.
even know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people. And I know this. We are a great nation because we are good people. When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. But there's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. Over the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job as president. That means I'll continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I'll keep defending our personal freedoms and our civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose. I'll keep calling out hate and extremism. Make it clear there is no place in America for political violence or any violence ever, period. I'm going to keep speaking out to protect our kids from gun violence, our planet from climate crisis that is the existential threat. And I will keep fighting for my cancer moonshot so we can end cancer as we...
I absolutely believe we should have big investments in disease and anti-aging and all that stuff. Absolutely, 100,000% we should do that. But god damn, dude, you guys remember when he was like, I'm gonna cure cancer, not a joke? Remember that?
We know it because we can do it. And I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy, Supreme Court reform. You know, I will keep working to ensure America remains strong and secure and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it
NATO
more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific. You know, when I came to office, the conventional wisdom was that China would inevitably surpass the United States. That's not the case anymore. And I'm going to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war.
Why don't you end it right now, you dumb piece of shit? Why don't you call Netanyahu and be like, I'm going to end giving you weapons if you don't get a ceasefire. You have 3 weeks. You have 1 day. Whatever the fuck. Why don't you do your fucking job? It's so funny that he has his dumb fucking he has the olive branch revealed on the presidential seal when he's talking about, oh, I'm expanding NATO and fighting Ukraine. There's a war. Shut the fuck up, you demented old bastard. Is it new for him to even mention Supreme Court reform? Yes, it's new.
We're also working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world.
But he knows it can't happen because there's a Republican majority in Congress, so it's a dead fucking letter.
You know, we've come so far since my inauguration. On that day, I told you, as I stood in that winter, we stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. We were in the grip of the worst pandemic in the century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. But we came together as Americans, and we got through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. Today, we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 16 million new jobs, a record. Wages are up. Inflation continues to come down. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities.
The racial wealth gap is back to where it was during that civil rights champion George W. Bush. Don't you remember the Utopia 2004?
Manufacturing has come back to America. We're leading the world again in chips and science and innovation.
Not like in the development of chips or in the construction or production of chips, but we're leading the world in chips in the sense that leading means talking and saying things.
Finally beat Big Pharma after all these years to lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. And I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we lower the cost for everyone, not just seniors. More people have health care today in America than ever before. And I signed one of the most significant laws helping millions of veterans and their families who are exposed to toxic materials. You know, most significant climate law ever in the history of the world. The first major gun safety law in 30 years. And today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We're also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans. That's what I've done. I ran for president 4 years ago because I believed and still do that the soul of America was at stake. The very nature of who we are was at stake. And that's still the case. America's an idea. An idea stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We've never fully lived up to it, to this sacred idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I do not believe the American people will walk away from it now. In just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office, alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders had given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was a republic. if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claremont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States.
That's just
here I am.
Blatantly not true. Like, what are you even talking about, man? It's blatantly not true. There's plenty of countries where people who were poor rose up to take supreme executive power. Like, what is this? Is like nonsensical myth making. It's very cringe. It feels almost insulting to it insults everybody who has a brain. Like, that's kind of the intent. The intent to is insult you if you've read a book, but pander to you if you're dumb. So it's kind of like a micro exercise of power where it's like, are you going to call it out? Are you going to say it's stupid? Because if you call it out and say America's not unique in that sense, well, then you're being unpatriotic and your vibes are off. So it's like this exercise of power where you're like, okay, do I just ignore this and smile along with this pablum? Or do I say, this is dumb as fuck, and then look like I'm vibe killing and being anti-patriotic, which is the entire point of it. Ugh.
That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. You just have to keep faith. Keep the faith. And remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together. Preserve our democracy. God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
Ugh. Ugh. Leisha Miller disappointed me with this one. Go to timestamp 1920. Oh, I can't wait for this.
I am just trying to enjoy.
Can't wait to see this.
Certain that he would be a great choice. Another name that's floated is J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois. He's a billionaire. He would.
No, but literally nobody knows what they're talking about. Literally, I'm going to say it right now. I have lost respect for like 10 people because of their inability to do an analysis of any politicians. Like, legitimately, no one knows what they're talking about. Like, before we even get into it, like, it's pathetic. It's all vibes and internet, and it's all like Twitter shit. Like, there's a lot of severe disrespect for people on their inability to like judge and compare various politicians in a substantive way. It's like this whole Brashear thing is based off of, it's everybody pinging off of each other, and it's very substanceless. Or it's like people being bare minimum libs. Like, every lib in America sounds like Brashear when they're at the state level. I know you guys don't know this because you don't participate in state politics, but like, every single lib sounds like Brashear. It's unusual when they sound like fucking Shapiro. It's unusual when they sound like some of these freaks. Okay, let's keep going.
Be an awful choice. The elites who are Democrats will already be voting for Harris or whoever is on the top of the ticket. They are not the ones we need to win over with whoever Harris chooses.
So her belief is that he represents the elites of the Democratic Party? Okay, interesting.
And a billionaire, not going to cut it. Awful option. Shouldn't even be floated, frankly. Another name, Gavin Newsom.
I think that's like a really, by the way, substanceless, which is like, yeah, he's a billionaire. All these other people want to be billionaires. Like, do you not see what Barack Obama is doing with his time? Making money. So what are you even talking about? Like legitimately, that just, and by the way, I'm not even that big of a fan. I just know how to evaluate politicians. I'm also not a Pritzker fan, but saying that is like saying you can't read angles, he owned a factory. Yeah, it's weird. It's substanceless. It's all vibes. And listen, like a lot of it's not to say that vibes aren't important, but we're talking about the direction of the Democratic Party for like the next decade. I think you should probably think about it a little deeper than just your fucking vibe. How about a little bit of analysis over what they've done as politicians, how they have presented, what arguments they've made? It's actually fucking embarrassing, man. By Alicia Miller's logic, the Democratic Party made a mistake electing an elite like FDR. Like, by the way, somebody's class background can be indicative of their interests, but when you're a politician, you don't need to go and do like fucking tea leaf reading. You go and look what they do. You don't have to go, well, let's look at their identity. How has identity worked? How's that working out for us? I know everything is like, we're very much social animals, and I know that I'll never get it, and I'll never understand why people care so much about some of this stuff. And my autism will never allow me to put myself in the shoes of people that are like, well, this person liked them, therefore I'm going to pretend like they're good too. I just be like, well, why don't we just like evaluate what they're saying and whether they're smart on our own? Why do we have to go off of somebody socially liking them and therefore we have to like them? But like they're bringing nothing to the table. Like, why are they here? They suck. Like, what's going on? Kamala Harris campaign considering J.B. Pritzker for vice presidential candidate. Harris's campaign called the governor to discuss the number 2 spot on Wednesday. Source told the Sun-Times, I'd be reluctant to make a change, but it's hard to resist a call and consideration if the nominee asked me to be considered for vice president, Pritzker said on CNN. So in other words, he wants to be vice president. Comrade, said Khrushchev, I must point out that you at the start that you have an aristocratic background, but I am from proletarian stock. Quick as a flash, Zhu Enlao replied, yes, Comrade Khrushchev, and we are both traitors to our class. Okay, so here's what you need to say. Here's fundamentally my position. Number one, does the person hate Republicans? Do they have contempt for the Republican Party? Have they demonstrated contempt for the Republican Party over the course of their career? That's not Bashir. Bashir does not have contempt for the Republicans. He is one of those people that goes, I can work with them. I'll work with the Republican Party. We'll be bipartisan. We'll work across party lines. Why the fuck would you want that? Are you crazy? We'll reach across the aisle. And he's got that kind of like very much Faye plantation second son voice, if you get my drift. It's just, well, but I just don't know why these workers are getting all their britches in and not. I just replaced the side cladding on their huts and I doubled their chitlins. Like, yeah, bro, that's the guy I want. You fucking dipshit. It won't matter though who we like to be VP. What are you talking about? Like, I go on, like when I see people, like, I'll be honest, chat. How do I put this? I walked into a situation where a favorite content creator of mine was in some sort of Bashir fucking spiral. And then I just started shitting on them and adding some pro Pritzker shit, and the conversation completely changed. There's no such thing as somebody who will deliver a swing state. It doesn't it's not real. You can't deliver. VPs don't deliver swing states. Fuck, presidents don't even deliver their home state. Al Gore didn't deliver Tennessee. VP picks do not deliver their fucking state. It's stupid. Funny how literally everyone I talk to here in PA fully recognize that Shapiro isn't going to do jack fuck to help Debs in PA, yet this is some major narrative in the national conversation. It's because he's conservative. One other thing I wanted to talk about is the new polling is starting to come out, chat. Emerson State polls just came out from earlier this week. Arizona, Trump over Kamala 53-47. Georgia, Trump up 51-49. Pennsylvania, Trump up 51-49. Michigan, Trump up 51-49. Wisconsin, Harris up 51-49. Previously, so she's had a bump, but she's still behind Trump. So Arizona's +6, Georgia's +2, Pennsylvania's +2, Trump, Michigan's +2, and Wisconsin's, +2 Harris. My buddy who's a leftist is swooning over Harris. How do I shake him out of the vote blue no matter who mentality? He's having a he needs to wait for the influencers he watches to tell him to change his mind, and then he will. Because he's not, you know, it's when the algorithm starts talking about Gaza again or whatever else. So, I mean, you know, Kamala has gotten a boost, but she's still down. Even though, I mean, and most of this is margin of error shit. And like, you know, but this is still Trump win. Oh yeah, by the way, chat, oh man, I wanted to talk to you guys about this. And like, the honeymoon for Harris is happening. The honeymoon for Harris is happening. Harris opens up early edge with young voters. If the 2024 election were held today, would you vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Joe Biden 53, Donald Trump 47. If the 2024 election were held today, would you vote for the candidates? 60% Kamala, 40% Trump. Vice President Kamala Harris is significantly more popular among America's youngest voters than President Biden. That's because, quite frankly, there is a TikTok and Twitch and Twitter and social media positivity towards Kamala Harris right now. She wisely skipped the Netanyahu speech. A lot of senior Democrats skipped the Netanyahu speech. This is why, quite frankly, if you're like, oh, will there be a change in policy if Kamala Harris gets into office? I think the answer to that is probably yes. But I don't think we can wait. I don't think I can wait. I don't think you can wait. I don't think the people of Palestine certainly can't wait. We can't live off of hope. Hope alone is not enough.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win. So join us. Go to KamalaHarris.com and let's get to work.
I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
It's the vibe, you know. It's intended to be a vibe. Compare this to a Bernie 2016.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Yeah. Kamala Harris released a statement condemning protesters. Yeah, I know, chat. I just posted a tweet on it. Kamala Harris, statement from Vice President Kamala Harris. Yesterday at Union Station in Washington, D.C., we saw despicable acts by unpatriotic protesters and dangerous hate-filled rhetoric. I condemn any individuals associated with the brutal terrorist organization Hamas, which has vowed to annihilate the state of Israel and kill Jews. Pro-Hamas graffiti and rhetoric is abhorrent, and we must not tolerate it in our nation. I condemn the burning of the American flag. That flag is a symbol of our highest ideals as a nation, and it represents the promise of America. It should never be desecrated in that way. I support the right to peacefully protest, but let's be clear. Anti-Semitism, hate, and violence of any kind have no place in our nation. And I said, oh my fucking God, here, let me just edit this post here. Go ahead. I said, on the one hand, something got spray painted and a flag got burned. On the other, Israel has murdered 15,000 children. Glad to see which gets condemned and what gets ignored. This is just pretty much standard response in general. Stop doing pro-Hamas shit. I mean, as I've always said, I support international law. Let's go back to what I said on October 8th. Let's just go back to what I said on October 8th. I said, when occupying soldiers get shot, that is war. And occupied people have the untrammeled and full legal right to resist. I said that October 7th. That is the position you should have. That is the position you should have as an American. Support international law. That's what I believe. Going around going, Hamas is going to get you and putting triangles out there like you're a fucking freedom fighter is cringe. It's fucking cringe. And also, you're not even helping out the Palestinian resistance. You're being a LARPer. You're beating your chest on the internet. You're being a keyboard warrior. It's a distraction. And then everybody's going to be like, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? You don't condemn Hamas? You don't remember what happened on Piers Morgan? It's just a waste of our fucking time. And honestly, the best way to support the Palestinians right now is to get a goddamn ceasefire and recognize the Palestinian state, which is what they say they want you to do. I don't think that's what the protesters were doing. I've seen enough based on what I saw that it was a lot of LARPing. It was a lot of LARPing and cringe shit. Like there's been this culture created where it's like, people want me to condemn Hamas. I'm going to celebrate Hamas. And it's like, congratulations. You have fallen into the Zionist trap of being so angry at their atrocities that you gave them a talking point. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Mad people are just angry. Yeah. I mean, listen, it is what it is. I'm just saying for what you should do, chat. I'm not even really criticizing this people. I don't even fucking care. Honestly. I don't even fucking care if I'm being honest. If you could burn 80 American flags, I won't give a shit. That literally doesn't matter. You could throw spray paint on a fucking monument. Who gives a fuck? And Nancy Pelosi yesterday skipped Benjamin Netanyahu's speech along with a large number of Democrats. I think it was almost 150 Democrats in this House and Senate. And a lot of the people that were sitting for the speech were literally just seat fillers. Like, Zionists brought in to sit in the seats of representatives. Benjamin Netanyahu's presentation in the House chamber today was by far the worst presentation of any foreign dignitary invited and honored with the privilege of addressing the Congress of the United States. I agree completely. That wasn't just bad. That was pure fucking evil. And John Fetterman, Joe Manchin, and Kirsten Sinema sitting in the front. I mean, that really shows you everything you need to see, right? Like, what the fuck is going on with people? Many of us who love Israel spent time today listening to Israeli citizens whose families have suffered in the wake of October 7th Hamas terror attack and kidnappings. These families are asking for a ceasefire deal that will bring the hostages home, and we hope the Prime Minister would spend his time achieving that goal. No. With a ceasefire, you fucking scum. We need to finish the job. What does that mean? Nobody knows. What does that mean? This is the thing that's really blackpilling me, is there's not even an attempt at this point by the genociders to even come up with a lie. Scoop, Nancy Pelosi has endorsed Supervisor Dean Preston's re-election bid in San Francisco. Preston, a Democratic socialist, has been a favorite target of Elon Musk, who called for the supervisor to be imprisoned last year. Nancy Pelosi endorses ultra-progressive San Francisco official and Elon Musk foe. The endorsement comes as Preston, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, has faced an onslaught of attacks from a political advocacy group bankrolled by tech investors. By the way, the tech industry is collapsing in America. Like, the tech stocks are all fucking collapsing because all the scam promises are being exposed as bullshit. Everybody knows it's all bullshit. Super microcomputer declined 5%. VanEck semiconductor ETF shed 3%. Mega cap stocks Meta, Platform, Microsoft, and Alphabet fell 2%. Disappointing quarterly reports from Alphabet and Tesla. Both the broad market index and the tech-heavy benchmark posted their worst session since 2022, while the Dow shed roughly 504 points. Investors have come to view the recent declines as a sign of an overdue correction in an overbought market, which is now seeing a rotation away from mega cap tech into small cap stocks in more cyclical areas. Zuckerberg needs to pass the torch to new Facebook reform. Facebook is the most scam company ever, right? Like, it doesn't even exist. Like, no one uses that, right? When's the last time I even heard somebody mention Facebook? Legitimately. SpaceX wins preliminary injunction against NLRB, arguing agency is unconstitutional. Jesus Christ, man. NASA says no return yet for astronauts and Boeing capsule at space station. Officials say 2 NASA astronauts will remain at the International Space Station until engineers finish working on problems plaguing their Boeing capsule. Boeing's capsule failed. I think it's leaking helium or something. Let me see if I can find a video on this.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, 2 NASA astronauts that were supposed to be back on Earth a month ago will remain at the International Space Station. Test pilots Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams were supposed to visit the orbiting lab for a week and then return in mid-June. Engineers are still working on their Boeing Starliner capsule that's been having thruster failures and helium leaks. Mission managers today said they are not ready to announce a return date. This was Boeing's first test flight with a crew on board. Michelle, thanks. We're getting a better idea of the local.
Boeing is just having W after W, chat. Oh, wait. What the fuck? CNN literally just posted this.
New today, NASA and Boeing admit they still don't have a clear return date for those 2 astronauts that got up there on the Starliner. They're not technically stuck up there, but it sure seems like they might be stuck up there. Officials have insisted that Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore are not stuck.
That's right, because there are ways they could get back. We're going to talk about that here in a second, but they aren't at this point ready to commit to a return date yet. The astronauts have been in space now for 50 days on a mission that was supposed to last only a week. About a week, I should say. CNN's Kristen Fisher here with us, as always. This is the assignment that continues to grow for you, Kristen, as it does for Sonny and Butch. And officials just held a press conference, and there's an update. Yes or no?
Well,
or we're waiting for this?
we got an update, but we didn't get a return date. That's what everybody's been waiting for. It's what everybody's been hoping for. It didn't come. Now, both NASA leaders and Boeing leaders say that they've made great progress on the testing that they've been doing on the grounds in White Sands, New Mexico. They've been testing these thrusters that failed up in space on the ground, see if they can duplicate the efforts there. They say they've made progress, but not enough to give an actual return date. And listen to this. One of the NASA leaders that was on the call, Steve Stitch, he was asked point blank, can you definitively say that these 2 NASA astronauts, Butch and Sonny, will definitively be coming home on this Starliner spacecraft? Here's what he said.
Our focus today, as Mark said, as Mark and I have been working for the last number of weeks, is to return Butch and Sonny on Starliner. I think we're starting to close in on those final pieces of the flight rationale to make sure that we can come home safely. And that's our primary focus right now. We have contingency options. We've put those in play. NASA always has contingency options. We know a little bit of what those are, and we haven't worked on them a whole bunch, but we kind of know what those are.
So even now, this many weeks in, NASA still saying that they can't definitively say that Butch and Sonny will be able to come home on this Starliner spacecraft. One more thing. You heard Steve talk about contingency plans. There are other ways, other spacecrafts that in a worst case scenario could get Butch and Sunny home. You've got the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. You've got SpaceX's Dragon capsule. Those are options, but at the moment, they're going to continue with this testing and hopefully get these astronauts home on Starliner.
March.
Earliest would be likely mid-August, but they've got to get back by September because that's when the battery life runs out on Starliner.
Bit of an unplanned vacation, not vacation, kind of a working vacation.
Working vacation.
Part of the work that they went there to do, they received this really great reception when they first got on, is because they were fixing a key part of the gear on the ISS.
Yes.
And the astronauts, we understand, had resorted to using bags to hold some of their pee, some of their urine, because the crank, something broke on the toilet.
The pump.
They brought the pump in. Do you have an update for us on that situation?
Yes, the urine replacement pump has been fixed. It's working. Bags of astronaut urine are no longer just piling up at the International Space Station. So that's some really good news, especially when you have 2 extra bodies up there than what you were planning for, right? The downside for poor Butch and Sunny is that in order to get that pump up to the International Space Station, they had to take some gear out. And NASA chose to take out 2 of their personal suitcases. In those suitcases were their toiletries. So things that you would want for an 8-day stay, but things that you would definitely want for a several weeks long stay. Don't worry, guys, there are replacements. They have a stash of at the ISS, but it's not like it's not your toiletries, the brands you know and love.
They don't have to borrow someone else's deodorant, is what you're saying.
Let's hope not, right? I mean, I guess it's always a
question when they get back.
possibility.
Yeah, a lot of questions for
You
them.
know, it
Hopefully,
smells crazy in there.
we'll know when they're getting back soon. Kristen Fisher, thank you so much for that.
Like, can you imagine the rotten neoliberal International Space Station? The Chinese built the Tiangong in 2 years, faster than my country is filling a pothole in the road.
The Chinese space program recently completed a major milestone with their Tiangong space station.
Tiangong.
The third and final Mengtian research module was successfully docked to the on the Tiangong as a research and experiment on the having to run a labyrinth of cables around.
This is the International Space Station. This is the Tiangong. Very funny.
In length. For a few reasons for that. For one, the ISS modules are typically much shorter with more connection points in between that create bottlenecks in the structure. For example, the Destiny lab on the ISS, which is the primary operating facility for US astronauts, is 8.4 meters or 28 feet long, while the Wentian and the Mengtian modules are both 18 meters or 59 feet in length. And secondly, the technology on Tiangong is just much more modern and therefore smaller and able to fit into smaller spaces. For example, many of the systems on Tiangong will connect wirelessly instead of having to run a labyrinth of cables around like what we see on the ISS. Also, much of the technology on the Tiangong is hidden behind these plain white panels when not in use. I don't know if that's more functional or aesthetic, or if they just don't want anyone else to be able to see what they're working on, but it does help make the station look very clean and modern. Spacewalks have become an exciting feature of life on the Tiangong. There are 3 of China's own EVA suits on the station, kept in the Wentian airlock. Spacewalks are helped out by a combination of 2 robotic arms on the station. The Tianhe module has a 10-meter arm, and Wentian has its own 5-meter arm. And what's really cool is that the 2 can combine together and function as one single arm. This comes pretty close to matching the capabilities of the 17-meter-long Canadarm2 on the ISS.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom issues executive order for removal of homeless encampments in California. I mean, he can't be the vice president with all these homeless around. He's got to clear them out. Gavin Newsom issued an executive order Thursday to direct state agencies on how to remove homeless encampments. A month after Supreme Court ruling allowing cities to enforce bans on sleeping outside in public spaces, Newsom's order is aimed at thousands of tents and makeshift shelters across the state that line freeways, clutter shopping center parking lots, and fill city parks. The order makes it clear that the decision to remove encampments remains in local hands. The order comes after a decision by the U.S. Supreme Court earlier this summer allowing cities to enforce bans on sleeping outside in public spaces. Newsom's administration has come under fire recently after a state audit found that the state didn't consistently track whether the huge outlay of public money actually improved the situation, because it's all sucked up by the nonprofit industrial complex. It doesn't actually go to like spending. Like, imagine if you took land with eminent domain, you hired a bunch of carpenters and electricians, and you bought up building materials, and you built high quality, you did a competition for housing, like design, and you picked a bunch of designs from leading architectural firms, and you started building this housing, and you built $24 billion. $6.4 billion to build 4,350 housing units. Jesus. That's 1.4 million per housing unit. 1.4 million per housing unit. Like, this is this is Democrat right here. They fucking suck at everything, man. Can someone explain to me why this is a good idea instead of building an apartment building? Well, like what this is? Like what is this shit? Like, this is mentally fucking just so stupid. Like, this is so fucking stupid. This is legitimately fucking stupid. And this would be fine for disaster relief? No, it wouldn't. Get trailers. Get full-size trailers. Why are you building these tiny things? Like, it doesn't make any sense. These are disgusting sheds. How much does a shed cost? Home Depot. Look at this shed. This shed is $3,500. It's so much nicer than this piece of shit you just showed me. Why the fuck does this cost tens of thousands of dollars? It's like crazy. Just so you understand how much this shit actually costs. They're spending $1.4 million per house. This is a $100,000 trailer. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing? Would any this is a $100,000? What are we doing? What are we fucking doing? Why use that money when you could just pocket it? That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's the Democratic Party. It's grift and theft. And by the way, they're making a shit ton of profit when they sell it for $100 grand. Okay? You could buy larger mobile homes on Amazon for a fraction of the price. I was just like literally looking at random fucking high-end shit just so you understand how fucking stupid this is. My mother-in-law just bought a double wide for $35,000. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, what the fuck is going on? Are there architectural reasons related to the state of California that would prevent this? What, you think these sheds are earthquake proof? Like, what are you talking about, man? What the fuck are you talking about, man? Permitting hookups and land are expensive. Literally none of that stuff is hard to do. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Also, you're the government. All the land belongs to you. Every piece of land in the United States of America is owned by the government. Whether you have a deed or not. Who do you think gives you the deed? They could just take it. It's in the fucking Constitution. They could just take your land. What the fuck are people talking about? Like, the liberalism is insane. Also, this is, I mean, like, honestly, anybody who built this literally deserves to be fucking...
There goes Karen Bass. She's defunding the city. Karen Bass defunds the city to give LAPD more money. You defunded the city, Karen. You've cut homelessness and housing spending by $260 million to give cops another $110. You are defunding the city. And Inside Safe is a huge scam, Karen. Inside Safe is a huge scam. It's costing us $17,000 per month to house one person. $17,000 per month for one person, Karen. It's a huge scam. You have absolutely defunded the city. The housing problem is getting worse. The homelessness problem is getting worse. You have only permanently housed 440 people. People are going to go to jail over Inside Safe. Heidi, you've done no oversight. Heidi, you've been covering for her. You've been covering for Karen Bass. Karen, your Inside Safe program is a scam, and you know it. And I'm not. Inside Safe is a scam, and you know it. I am tired of you defunding the city.
But by the way, this is exactly, I mean, this is true. This is true. But you have to understand that everyone around her is a lib-ass piece of shit. And they're just going to go, oh, somebody's making me feel uncomfortable. They're yelling and I feel so uncomfortable. I feel so uncomfortable the way you're yelling at me. And it's so funny because it's like, you know, obviously these internet things, sources are not necessarily the most like accurate. But like, let's say 50 units, 700 square foot units, $245,000 per unit. Do you want to double that to 1,400 square feet, which is very big? $500,000 per unit. That's like a 3 or 4 bedroom apartment. Make it an even 1,000. Make that a 3 or 2 bedroom, 2 bath. 350,000. Like, this is what realistic costs are. But for California to build a, you know, it's 5 or 6 times that. It's fucking crazy.
Data points informed by data collected from satellites and ground-based measurements were run through powerful supercomputers to scale observed behavior to a global stage. What makes this model stand out is that it's super high resolution, 128 times higher than a typical weather model, 500 times higher resolution than a typical climate model.
He's conservative.
This means we could focus on individual points like power plants and forest fires and see in extreme detail how these plumes move and get mixed in the atmosphere. Now, why is this important? Because by creating these high-resolution models, NASA scientists are able to better understand the behavior of Earth's interconnected systems, like how plumes of CO2 interact and spread with weather systems. For instance, you can clearly see the impact the day-night cycles have on CO2 emissions. This is due to daily fluctuations in human activities, cycles of photosynthesis, and fires flaring up and dying down. Our ability to run such a simulation allows us to see how individual data points influence the larger picture, uncovering previously unknown atmospheric relationships, and help us better understand the complexities of our atmosphere.
I wanted to cover this too because we're all gonna die.
This morning, dozens of massive wildfires are raging up and down the West Coast from California all the way to Canada, and the Park Fire in Central California exploded in size overnight.
There was this TikToker that started popping up, or a YouTube short that started to pop up, and it was this guy who works as a fire lookout. Have any of you guys seen this YouTube short? Anyway, he was like, how it is to be a fire lookout, and he started posting it. Which honestly is a great way of, I've been getting a lot more of these kind of this content, like day in the life of whatever job. You know, I got home inspector TikToks, I got fire lookout TikToks, I got a guy who does like, he's a short order cook. Like, I'm getting all these like working class people content. Fire lookouts are very cool jobs. It's pretty easy stuff. Usually as a recent, a little more involved for obvious reasons. Dirty jobs without the idiot. I love all the professionals make their own videos. Yeah, that's the type of content that's like blowing up a lot. Let me tell you, the wildfires, the majority of the time are not wildfires. They're man-made fires. Arsonists. That's a night tactic that came here in my country when they want to change the plot regulation or some shit to make houses or whatever. I don't think you're right about that. Like, for example, if I went to Pennsylvania and I grabbed a fucking Molotov cocktail and I threw it into the forest, it would not cause a wildfire. It literally wouldn't. The fire would burn itself out. These are based on the conditions of these environments.
It's now burning out of control. Jonathan Vigliotti has more.
For 2 weeks, parts of Northern California have been burning. And overnight, a new wildfire is raging out of control.
Its arsonist is a right-wing anti-climate change talking point. The temperatures are higher. There's less precipitation. The brush is drier and more plentiful. Yeah.
Just north of Sacramento, sending flames up into trees and devouring thousands of acres. Fire crews drove between walls of flames near the town of Chico, where hundreds of residents are under evacuation orders. This time-lapse video shows the fire creeping up to this state alert camera tower used to monitor natural disasters and overtaking it.
Looks like the tower didn't work.
Evacuation route for the folks that were up at the tower. Affirmative.
And other harrowing scenes are coming out across the Pacific Northwest, including eastern Oregon, where nearly 36 large wildfires are running rampant. Thousands of firefighters are scrambling to cut fire lines in the dry vegetation, which is fueling the fast-moving flames, which are now threatening crucial highways throughout the area.
It has been very active, burning both down to the southeast as well as back up into the northwest, and it's also impacting areas along Interstate 84, so we know that that corridor has been closed off and on for the last several days.
Fire crews are spread thin as they often have to pivot from one fire.
We are going to shift over to the Boneyard fire
to battle another. Burn scars cover the once lush landscape.
And here on the Oregon-Idaho border, several communities have had their power turned off. Overnight, a storm system rolled through, bringing some rain, but a lot of lightning, raising concerns new fires have been sparked. For CBS Mornings, I'm Jonathan Vigliotti in Vail, Oregon.
Like, here's some of the stuff I got. There's this guy.
So I was in this exact same spot.
He's the home inspector guy who goes around and looks at new home builds and says, they're all shit. Never trust your home builder. They're all scumbags. I like this guy.
So I was in this exact same spot a year ago. I did their final walk warning inspection. This clip actually even made the news. Not only does the builder not paint where you're not going to look, but they don't do repairs where you're not going to be able to check.
Sy was so surprised at what he was finding that he started posting his inspections on TikTok.
They do a great job painting where you can see, but they don't like to paint where you can't see. This home was having issues with the breakers, so the way they fixed it, once again, was they removed the safety features. Check this out. This kitchen breaker was an arc fault and ground fault. And what did the builder do to fix it? They removed it and replaced it with a standard breaker. You have no idea what they're doing right here. Well, technically this one's not a weld, but the frame is still broken. And I just can't imagine why these welds break. It's like, can't even tell. So now a lot of you may ask, well, what's next? Contact the ROC and file a complaint. So I was in this exact same...
I found it. Like, he's actually a really good content creator if you want to understand why regulations are necessary, why you need a strong government. Because the solution to actually get these builders to fix the issues, that many issues and scams, is always getting the government involved. And the builders really try to, as a third-party home inspector, the builders hate when he goes and looks at their work. They don't want people with competence looking at their shit. They want to throw it up as cheaply as possible, sell it to rubes, and then run away. They don't want you to actually have a home that's decent. This is the other type of stuff I get.
How do you become a fire lookout? The main way is by going to USA Jobs and applying there. The application period is usually only open for a week, so don't miss it. But isn't it really competitive? Yes, there are only a few hundred lookouts that are still active, and usually at the end of each season they'll ask if the lookout wants to come back next year. Because of this, there might only be a few openings a year. So how did you get it? I missed the application period while I was walking, and so I just ended up calling around to a bunch of national forests and asking if they had an opening at a lookout. I got really lucky because someone pulled out 2 days before I called. Do you have internet out there? Nope, I don't have any Wi-Fi, cell service, or anything. One of the reasons I wanted to be a lookout was to disconnect from everything and just be fully present. When you're surrounded by so much beauty, why would you want to be distracted by
And then I post on TikTok now.
anything else? Thanks for watching.
But in case you want to know what how empty America really is, I think he just had some fires. He was talking about. I saw a clip where he was talking about. Oh, here we go.
First fire of the season. The first fire of the season started over the weekend, probably caused by lightning. The smoke raised its head right as they were flying the lookout up to the tower on top of that mountain, so it was pretty good timing. Personally, I think it's a pretty cool way to start the season. And then I just spent the rest of the day looking out like normal. I really wanted to make sure that there were no other fires that had started in the district. As I watched the fire, I had a sandwich for lunch, and then the helicopter went and dropped the fire crew up at the fire so that they could do some recon and figure out what to do. They determined that the fire was about 5 or 6 acres and burning in an old burn scar with a bunch of old dead and down. And then the helicopter was reconfigured to drop buckets of water on the fire to buy some time. I didn't have much to do once the day was over since the other lookout was a lot closer and could give the crew a better idea of what was going on, so I made a frog. Eventually they decided not to suppress the fire because it wasn't much of a threat to the lookout. It was really difficult to navigate, and the only way to escape would be by helicopter. First fire of the season. The first fire of the season.
As someone who does aerial survey work, we call it to ATC very often this time of year to let them relay it to the aerial guys. There was a decommissioned fire lookout tower I used to camp at down in Arizona. The sunrise and sunsets were beautiful. Yeah. It's common practice in the States for construction contractors to change the name of their company to evade lawsuits and bad reviews or start a new company with their spouse or friend. I know a roofing contractor who started companies under new names 6 times. Yikes.
Time for a tour of the fire lookout. Wheelbarrow. Upstairs. The upstairs of the lookout is about 15 by 15 feet wide, and it's where I live for the season. Cook. Make fire. Sit. Work. Store stuff. Sleep. Store food. Store cleaning supplies. Look at myself. Find fire. Downstairs. I know I joked that there was a pool in the blockhouse last season, but what's actually in there is... Time for a tour of the...
I went to a lecture about beavers a few months ago, and they were saying beaver populations were back on the rise. And they found that out. They alter the landscape to prevent wildfires in the lands they populate. Yeah.
Today started off like any other day. I spent the morning cleaning the helipad of all the brush that had grown on it, even though no one really uses it. Then as I was doing a routine scan of the area...
only gets used when, you know, there's a fire really close.
Finally happened. I saw the first big fire of the season. I've been waiting for this one. I quickly went to the alidade and pointed the crosshairs directly at the smoke, which gave me the azimuth, or the angle that the fire is from my lookout. Then I radioed the closest lookout, and where our azimuths crossed is exactly where the fire was. Because he was closer and could see the fire better, he sent in the report to dispatch, but by this time the fire had already doubled in size. It was putting up a crazy column. Then, with our job done, I spent the rest of the day listening to the radio, and it was one of the most exciting things ever. They were calling in helicopters to have people rappel down to the fire in order to protect the old lookout that's up there. No one uses it, but they have radio equipment up there. Then I just spent the rest of the day watching as the fire grew and smoke and haze filled the air. It did make for a really pretty sunset, though. Today started off like any other.
Content!